Life will test you in ways you never expect. People will push your buttons, situations will frustrate you, and stress will try to control your choices. How you respond in those moments defines not just the outcome, but who you become. Most of us react automatically, letting anger, fear, or pride take the wheel that leads to regret, tension, and wasted energy. But there is another way. You can learn to pause, notice your impulses, and respond with calm and clarity. You can take control of your story instead of letting circumstances control you. This audiobook is a guide to doing exactly that. It will show you step by step how to stop reacting out of habit, how to build habits that strengthen patience and self-trust, how to communicate thoughtfully, and how to handle mistakes without letting them define you. By the end, you will understand how small choices in the heat of the moment can become the ultimate power move in your life. Every chapter is packed with practical guidance, real-life applications, and strategies you can use right away to handle pressure, manage your emotions, and live intentionally. If you're ready to stop giving your power away and start leading your life with purpose, this journey will show you how. Chapter 1: Choose calm responses to reclaim control of your story. Most people believe their life is shaped by what happens to them, but the truth is quieter and more uncomfortable. Life is shaped by how a person responds in the moments that test them. Every day presents small pressures, unexpected words, unfair situations, and emotional jolts. These moments arrive without permission. What remains fully within personal control is the response. Calm responses are not passive, weak, or indifferent. They are deliberate choices that reclaim authorship over one's own story. When reactions are automatic, life feels like something that happens to you. When responses are calm and chosen, life becomes something you direct. A calm response is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to feel emotion without being ruled by it. Anger may rise, fear may appear, disappointment may press in. Calm does not deny these experiences. Calm simply refuses to let them take the wheel. This is where personal power begins, not in controlling the world, but in governing the self. When calm becomes the default response, situations lose their power to define you. People lose their ability to provoke you. Circumstances lose their grip on your identity. Every reaction carries a cost. A sharp reply can damage trust. A rushed decision can create regret. An emotional outburst can shape how others see you long after the feeling fades. These costs are rarely paid immediately. They accumulate quietly over time. Calm responses, on the other hand, compound in the opposite direction. They build credibility. They create inner stability. They earn respect, including self-respect. Calm responses turn chaotic moments into turning points. The need to react is often rooted in the desire to protect identity. When someone challenges an opinion, it feels like a challenge to worth. When plans fall apart, it feels like a judgment on competence. When treated unfairly, it feels like an attack on dignity. The mind rushes to defend. Words spill out. Actions follow quickly. Calm responses interrupt this pattern. They create a pause where identity is no longer fused with the moment. In that pause, choice becomes possible. Choosing calm is a skill, not a personality trait. It is built through awareness and practice. The first step is recognizing the early signals of reactivity. The body usually knows before the mind admits it. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, clenched jaw, a racing pulse. These are signs that the nervous system has moved into defense mode. Without awareness, reaction follows. With awareness, a window opens. In that window, calm can be chosen. Breath is the simplest tool for reclaiming that window. Slow breathing sends a signal of safety to the nervous system. It lowers urgency. It creates space between stimulus and response. Taking 3 slow breaths before speaking or acting can prevent words that cannot be taken back. This practice does not require silence or retreat. It requires discipline. Calm responses are built in seconds, not hours. Another powerful practice is labeling the experience internally. Naming what is happening reduces its grip. Saying internally that anger is present or frustration is rising creates distance. The emotion is no longer the self. It becomes a temporary state passing through awareness. This simple shift weakens the urge to react. Calm responses grow stronger when emotions are observed rather than obeyed. Stories drive reactions. The mind fills gaps with assumptions. A delayed message becomes a sign of disrespect. A short reply becomes rejection. A mistake becomes proof of failure. These stories feel real, but they are interpretations, not facts. Calm responses question the story before acting on it. Asking internally whether there is another explanation slows the emotional charge. It returns control to reason without suppressing feeling. Choosing calm does not mean accepting poor treatment or ignoring problems. Calm responses are firm and clear. They speak without aggression. They set boundaries without drama. They address issues without escalating them. Calm responses are often misunderstood as weakness by those who rely on chaos to feel powerful. In reality, calm is strength that does not need to announce itself. Consider a common situation where criticism appears unexpectedly. A reactive response defends, explains, or attacks. A calm response listens fully before speaking. It separates useful feedback from emotional noise. It responds to facts rather than tone. This approach preserves dignity and turns criticism into information rather than injury. Over time, people learn that calm individuals cannot be easily manipulated or provoked. Calm responses also change internal narratives. When reactions dominate, regret follows. Regret feeds self-criticism. Self-criticism erodes confidence. Calm responses interrupt this cycle. Acting with restraint builds trust in oneself. Each calm choice becomes evidence of self-mastery. Confidence grows quietly from these moments. Daily life offers countless training opportunities, traffic delays, disagreements, unexpected tasks, interruptions. These moments seem small, but they shape temperament. Treating them as practice grounds reframes frustration into development. Each calm response strengthens the muscle of self-control. This muscle grows with use. Ignoring these moments weakens it. One practical exercise is to choose one daily trigger and commit to responding calmly to it for a week. This might be slow service interruptions during work or critical comments. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness and intention. Reflecting at the end of each day on how responses were handled builds learning. Progress becomes visible through reduced emotional recovery time rather than total emotional absence. Calm responses also influence relationships deeply. People feel safer around those who do not overreact. Conversations become more honest. Conflicts resolve faster, trust grows. Calm creates emotional space where others can be themselves without fear of explosion or withdrawal. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means addressing issues without adding unnecessary heat. At work, calm responses signal leadership. Leaders are not defined by authority, but by stability under pressure. When others panic, calm individuals become anchors. Decisions improve, teams feel steadier. Even without formal titles, calm responses elevate influence. People look to those who remain composed when stakes rise. The habit of calm also protects energy. Reactivity is exhausting. Emotional swings drain focus. Calm responses conserve mental resources. They allow attention to remain on what matters. This is not about suppressing emotion, but about channeling it productively. Energy saved from unnecessary reactions can be invested in creativity, problem-solving, and growth. Internal dialogue plays a major role. Harsh self-talk fuels reactivity. When the inner voice attacks, external events feel heavier. Replacing judgment with observation reduces pressure. Saying internally that a situation is difficult rather than unbearable changes the response. Calm begins with how experiences are interpreted. Silence is another underestimated tool. Not every thought needs expression. Not every emotion needs immediate release. Silence allows perspective to catch up with feeling. Choosing not to respond instantly is often the most powerful response. Silence is not avoidance when it is intentional. It is preparation. Calm responses also require letting go of the need to win every moment. Many reactions aim to prove a point or protect pride. Calm asks a different question. It asks what outcome serves long-term values rather than short-term satisfaction. This shift reduces impulsive behavior. It aligns actions with character rather than impulse. There will be moments when calm feels impossible. Fatigue, stress, and unresolved issues lower tolerance. Preparation matters. Sleep, nutrition, and routines influence emotional resilience. Calm responses are harder when the body is depleted. Caring for physical needs supports emotional discipline. This is not weakness. It is realism. Mistakes will happen. Reactivity will break through at times. The goal is not flawless calm. The goal is quicker recovery and learning. After a reactive moment, reflection matters more than self-criticism, asking what triggered the reaction and how it can be handled differently next time. Turns failure into training. Shame prolongs reactivity. Responsibility dissolves it. Writing can also support calm development. Journaling reactions and responses brings clarity. Patterns emerge. Triggers become predictable. Awareness grows. With awareness comes choice. Calm responses thrive on clarity. The environment also influences reactivity. Constant noise, digital overload, and rushed schedules increase emotional volatility. Creating small pockets of quiet supports calm. Reducing unnecessary stimulation preserves mental space. Calm is easier when the mind is not constantly bombarded. Choosing calm responses gradually reshapes identity. Instead of seeing oneself as emotional or reactive, a new self-image forms. A person becomes someone who responds thoughtfully. Identity follows behavior. Each calm choice reinforces this identity. Over time, reactions lose their authority. Calm responses do not eliminate passion. They refine it. They allow passion to be expressed clearly rather than chaotically. Purpose becomes steadier. Direction becomes clearer. Calm does not dull life. It sharpens it. When calm becomes habitual, the past loses its grip. Old triggers lose intensity. Situations that once caused distress become manageable. This does not mean becoming indifferent. It means becoming free. Freedom comes from not being controlled by every emotional wave. Reclaiming control of your story begins in moments that feel ordinary. A delayed reply, a disagreement, a mistake. These moments are chapters being written daily. Reactivity writes a story of chaos and regret. Calm writes a story of growth and strength. The world will continue to present challenges. People will disappoint. Plans will change. Uncertainty will remain. Calm responses do not remove these realities. They change the relationship with them. Instead of being dragged by events, calm allows walking alongside them with agency. Every calm response is a vote for the person you are becoming. It is a quiet declaration of self-respect. It signals that your inner state is not for sale to the highest provocation. This is not arrogance. It is grounded confidence. As this practice deepens, others may notice a change. Conversations become steadier. Decisions become clearer. Reactions slow. This change is not announced. It is demonstrated. Calm influence spreads without force. The ultimate power move is not silence or distance. It is presence with control, being fully engaged without being consumed, feeling deeply without losing direction, responding with intention rather than impulse. Choosing calm responses is choosing authorship over automation. It is deciding that the story of your life will not be written by circumstances or emotions alone. It will be shaped by conscious choices made in real time. Each moment offers this choice. Calm is always available, even when it feels distant. It begins with a breath. It continues with awareness. It solidifies through practice. Over time, it becomes natural. This is how control is reclaimed, not through dominance over others, but through mastery of the self, not through force, but through steadiness, not through reaction, but through response. When calm leads, the story changes. The pace slows, the direction sharpens, and the power returns to where it has always belonged. Chapter 2. Pause before reacting to build emotional strength daily. Most emotional damage does not come from what people feel, but from how quickly they act on those feelings. The moment between feeling and action is where strength is built or lost. That moment is usually brief, often ignored, and rarely respected. Yet it is the most important space a person can learn to protect. Pausing before reacting is not hesitation born of fear. It is restraint born of awareness. It is the ability to stay present long enough to choose a response that serves growth rather than impulse. Emotions are fast. They arrive before logic has time to form words. This speed is useful when danger is real, but in daily life it often creates unnecessary harm. A sharp comment, a sudden inconvenience, a perceived slight. These events trigger emotional surges designed for survival, not wisdom. Without a pause, the body acts as if every moment is a threat. With a pause, the mind regains its role as a guide. Pausing does not mean suppressing feelings. Suppression stores emotion and releases it later in unhealthy ways. A pause means allowing the feeling to exist without giving it authority. Anger can be present without becoming action. Fear can be felt without dictating behavior. Disappointment can surface without defining the outcome. Emotional strength grows when feelings are experienced fully but expressed selectively. The pause is a discipline that must be practiced daily. It is not built during major crises. It is built in ordinary moments when stakes feel small. These moments are training grounds when someone interrupts, when plans shift, when expectations are unmet. Each pause strengthens the nervous system's ability to tolerate discomfort without reacting. Over time, tolerance becomes capacity. Capacity becomes strength. One reason people struggle to pause is the belief that immediate reaction equals honesty. There is a fear that waiting makes responses less real or less true. In reality, the first reaction is often the least accurate. It is raw emotion mixed with assumption. Pausing allows truth to surface without distortion. What is said after a pause is usually clearer, calmer, and closer to what truly matters. The body plays a central role in this practice. Emotional reactions are physical before they are mental. Muscles tense, breathing shortens, the heart rate increases. These signals are invitations to pause. Learning to notice them creates early awareness. Awareness buys time. Time allows choice. A simple shift in posture or breath can extend the pause long enough for reason to return. A useful practice is slowing physical movement when emotions rise. Speaking slower, standing still for a moment, relaxing the hands. These actions send signals of safety to the brain. Safety reduces urgency. Urgency is the fuel of reaction. When urgency fades, clarity emerges. Another important aspect of pausing is resisting the urge to explain or defend immediately. Many reactions come from the need to justify oneself. Silence during this urge can feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is where growth happens. Pausing allows the need for approval to settle. Once it settles, responses become less defensive and more grounded. Pausing also changes how situations are interpreted. Without a pause, the mind jumps to conclusions. With a pause, curiosity replaces certainty. Asking internally, what else might be happening, shifts perspective. This does not excuse poor behavior from others. It simply prevents adding unnecessary emotional weight. Daily emotional strength is built through consistency, not intensity. Small pauses practiced often are more powerful than rare moments of restraint during crisis. Waiting 3 seconds before responding to a message. Taking a breath before replying in conversation. Counting silently before making a decision. These small acts accumulate. Emotional strength grows quietly. Pausing also protects self-respect. Many regrets come from words spoken too quickly. Once spoken, words cannot be reclaimed. Pausing preserves dignity. It allows speech to align with values rather than mood. Over time, this alignment builds trust in oneself. Self-trust is a cornerstone of emotional strength. There is also freedom in the pause. Reactivity creates the illusion of control, while actually surrendering control to emotion. Pausing restores autonomy. It reminds the mind that feelings are information, not commands. This distinction changes everything. When emotions are treated as data, decisions improve. Pausing before reacting does not weaken relationships, it strengthens them. Thoughtful responses reduce misunderstandings. Calm pauses de-escalate tension. Others feel heard rather than attacked. Conversations become solutions rather than battles. Emotional strength expressed through pause creates safer spaces for honest dialogue. Some moments require immediate action. This practice is not about delaying necessary decisions. It is about eliminating unnecessary reactions. Most daily interactions do not require instant response. Recognizing this reduces pressure. The pause becomes natural rather than forced. The pause is also an act of patience. Patience is often misunderstood as waiting without purpose. In truth, patience is active restraint guided by intention. Pausing is patience in motion. It is the willingness to endure temporary discomfort to avoid long-term consequences. Internal dialogue during the pause matters. Harsh self-talk shortens the pause. Gentle observation extends it. Instead of judging the emotion, notice it. Instead of labeling it as wrong, acknowledge it as present. This approach reduces internal conflict. Calm grows when the mind stops fighting itself. Pausing also reveals patterns. When reactions slow, recurring triggers become visible. Certain topics, certain people, certain situations. Awareness of patterns allows preparation. Prepared minds pause more easily. Emotional strength increases when triggers are anticipated rather than surprising. Digital communication is a major testing ground. Messages lack tone. Assumptions fill gaps. Pausing before responding to digital messages prevents unnecessary conflict. Waiting before replying allows emotions to settle. Responses become clearer and more respectful. This practice alone can improve many relationships. Pausing is especially important during self-judgment. Mistakes often trigger harsh internal reactions. Immediate self-criticism weakens resilience. Pausing before judging allows learning instead of shame. Emotional strength includes how one responds internally, not just externally. Fatigue reduces the ability to pause. When tired, reactions are faster and less thoughtful. Caring for rest is part of emotional discipline. Strength requires recovery. Pausing becomes easier when the body is supported. Ignoring this reality makes restraint harder than necessary. There will be times when pausing feels like failure, when silence feels like avoidance, when restraint feels like weakness. These feelings pass. What remains is the outcome. Paused responses usually lead to better outcomes. Over time, results build confidence in the practice. Pausing does not mean losing authenticity. It refines it. Authenticity guided by awareness is more powerful than raw expression. Saying what matters after reflection carries more weight than saying everything immediately. Emotional strength is not measured by how little one feels. It is measured by how well one manages what is felt. Pausing is management in action. It is the bridge between emotion and wisdom. As this practice deepens, the pause becomes longer without effort. What once required discipline becomes habit. Reactions slow naturally. The mind feels steadier. This is not emotional numbness. It is emotional maturity. Every pause is a small act of leadership over the self. It signals that growth matters more than momentary release. This leadership builds inner stability. Stability becomes confidence. Confidence supports long-term success. Pausing before reacting is a daily investment. It pays dividends in clarity, respect, and peace. It strengthens the inner foundation that no external event can shake easily. This strength does not announce itself. It shows through consistency. The world will continue to provoke, Opinions will clash, mistakes will occur. Pausing does not prevent these realities. It changes how they are carried. Instead of reacting and repairing, one responds and progresses. Emotional strength is built one pause at a time. Each pause is a quiet victory. Over time, these victories reshape character. They turn emotional chaos into calm authority. This is not about perfection. It is about direction, choosing to pause more often than before, recovering faster when reactions occur. Learning from each moment, growth happens here. When pausing becomes a habit, life feels less reactive and more intentional. Decisions feel cleaner. Relationships feel steadier. The mind feels clearer. This is how emotional strength is built daily, not through force, not through denial, through the simple disciplined act of pausing long enough to choose wisely. Chapter 3. Set clear boundaries that protect focus, energy, and values. Many people feel drained, not because life is unfair, but because their attention is constantly pulled in directions they never chose. Energy leaks slowly through unchecked demands, unclear expectations, and habits of overgiving. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate. They are filters that protect what matters most. Setting clear boundaries is an act of self-respect that preserves focus, energy, and values in a world that constantly asks for more. A boundary is a decision made in advance about what is acceptable and what is not. Without this decision, the mind is forced to negotiate in the moment, often under pressure. Pressure leads to compromise. Compromise repeated, often enough, leads to resentment. Clear boundaries remove constant negotiation. They simplify choices. They create structure where chaos once lived. Many struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. Saying no feels like letting someone down. Protecting time feels selfish. Prioritizing values feels rigid. These beliefs keep people trapped in patterns of exhaustion. Boundaries do not reject others. They honor the self. They define where responsibility ends and where choice begins. Focus is fragile. It cannot survive constant interruption. Every unnecessary yes fragments attention. Every unclear commitment divides energy. Over time, this division leads to scattered effort and shallow progress. Boundaries gather attention back to a single direction. They allow depth instead of constant reaction. Values guide behavior only when they are defended. Without boundaries, values remain ideas rather than lived principles. A person may value honesty but avoid hard conversations. They may value health but allow constant overwork. Boundaries turn values into action. They make priorities visible through behavior rather than intention. Setting boundaries begins internally. Before communicating limits to others, clarity is needed within. What drains energy most often? What deserves more attention? What feels misaligned? These questions bring awareness to patterns that have gone unnoticed. Awareness is the foundation of boundary setting. Once clarity exists, boundaries must be expressed calmly and directly. Over-explaining weakens boundaries. Apologizing for limits invites negotiation. Clear language communicates confidence. Saying what is available and what is not available removes ambiguity. Ambiguity is where boundaries fail. Boundaries are tested, not respected automatically. Some people will push, not always intentionally. Habits formed around access do not disappear instantly. Consistency is what gives boundaries strength. Each time a boundary is upheld, it becomes easier to maintain. Each time it is compromised, it weakens. Protecting energy requires recognizing that time and attention are limited resources. Treating them casually leads to depletion. Treating them deliberately leads to growth. Not every request deserves an answer. Not every problem requires involvement. Discernment is part of maturity. Digital boundaries are especially important. Constant notifications fragment focus. Endless availability creates invisible pressure. Choosing when to engage restores control. Turning off alerts. Scheduling specific times for messages. These actions protect mental clarity without harming connection. Work boundaries prevent burnout. Clear start and end times defined responsibilities, realistic expectations. Without these, work expands endlessly. Productivity declines as exhaustion increases. Boundaries protect performance by preserving capacity. Emotional boundaries matter just as much. Taking responsibility for others' feelings leads to chronic stress. Offering support without absorbing emotional weight preserves balance. Listening does not require fixing. Caring does not require carrying. Emotional boundaries allow compassion without collapse. Family and close relationships often test boundaries most intensely. Familiarity can blur limits. Love does not require constant sacrifice. Healthy relationships respect individuality. Boundaries create space where respect can grow. Without them, resentment quietly replaces closeness. Guilt often appears when boundaries are first set. Guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It is a signal that old patterns are changing. Allowing guilt to pass without reversing decisions strengthens self-trust. Over time, guilt fades as new norms form. Boundaries also protect identity. Without them, a person becomes shaped by external demands. With them, choices reflect intention rather than pressure. Identity stabilizes when actions align with values consistently. Learning to say no is central to this practice. No does not require justification. It is a complete sentence. Saying no to what does not serve allows yes to what does. Every no protects a future. Yes. Boundaries are not static. They evolve with growth. What was once acceptable may no longer fit. Revisiting boundaries regularly ensures alignment with current goals and values. Flexibility does not mean weakness. It means responsiveness to growth. Fear of conflict prevents many from setting boundaries. Avoiding conflict creates internal conflict instead. Short-term discomfort prevents long-term damage. Calm boundary setting reduces unnecessary tension. Clear limits prevent repeated misunderstandings. Self-boundaries are equally important. Limits placed on personal behavior protect integrity, choosing rest over overwork, choosing preparation over procrastination, choosing discipline over impulse. These boundaries shape character quietly. Boundaries also influence how others treat you. Clear limits teach others how to engage. Without guidance, people follow convenience. With boundaries, they follow respect. Respect grows where clarity exists. There is strength in choosing simplicity, fewer commitments. Clearer priorities, focused effort. Boundaries simplify life by removing excess. Simplicity supports depth. Energy protected through boundaries becomes available for meaningful work. Creativity improves, presence deepens, satisfaction increases. Life feels intentional rather than reactive. Some will misunderstand boundaries. That is unavoidable. Understanding is not required for boundaries to work. Respect is built through consistency, not explanation. Setting boundaries is an ongoing practice. Each day offers opportunities to protect focus and values. Each choice reinforces direction. Over time, boundaries become natural expressions of self-respect rather than conscious effort. Boundaries do not limit life. They shape it. They ensure energy flows toward growth rather than leakage. They allow values to guide action rather than remain abstract ideals. This is how focus is protected. This is how energy is preserved. This is how values are lived rather than spoken. Clear boundaries create the conditions where a meaningful life can grow steadily without constant repair. Chapter 4. Train awareness to notice triggers without acting impulsively. Most impulsive actions are not chosen in the moment they occur. They are set in motion long before, by patterns that go unnoticed. Triggers are not random. They are predictable signals tied to past experiences, unmet needs, and habitual thinking. Awareness is the skill that brings these signals into view. Without awareness, triggers feel like sudden attacks. With awareness, they become early warnings. Training awareness is the difference between being driven by impulse and guided by intention. A trigger is simply something that activates a strong internal reaction. It might be a tone of voice, a specific word, a familiar situation, or a certain type of pressure. The reaction feels immediate, but it is not new. It follows a script written through repetition. Awareness allows that script to be read instead of acted out. Most people believe they notice their emotions clearly, but what they often notice is already the reaction. Awareness begins earlier. It starts with subtle shifts in the body and mind. A change in breathing, a tightening in the chest, a sudden narrowing of attention. These signs appear before words or actions. Training awareness means learning to catch these signals without judgment. Judgment blocks awareness. When emotions are labeled as bad or weak, the mind rushes to suppress or justify them. This rush bypasses observation. Awareness requires neutrality, not approving, not condemning, simply noticing. Noticing creates distance. Distance creates choice. The practice of awareness is quiet and internal. It does not require changing anything immediately. It requires staying present long enough to see what is happening. This presence interrupts impulsive behavior naturally. Impulse thrives in unconsciousness. It weakens under observation. One effective way to train awareness is to slow attention deliberately. Most reactions happen when attention is scattered or rushed. Slowing attention anchors the mind in the present. Feeling the weight of the body, hearing surrounding sounds, noticing physical sensations. These simple acts ground awareness and reduce impulsive momentum. Triggers often carry stories. The mind interprets events quickly, often inaccurately. Awareness separates observation from interpretation. Someone speaks sharply. The observation is sound and tone. The interpretation is meaning assigned. Awareness pauses at observation. It prevents interpretation from becoming fact. Another key aspect of awareness is recognizing emotional patterns over time. Certain triggers repeat because they point to unresolved themes: rejection, control, uncertainty. When awareness tracks patterns, reactions lose their mystery. Familiarity reduces intensity. What is known is less threatening. Awareness does not remove emotion. It changes the relationship with it. Instead of being inside the emotion, awareness stands beside it. This position allows reflection without suppression. Emotions pass more quickly when they are observed rather than resisted. Training awareness requires patience. At first, triggers are noticed only after the reaction. This is progress. Awareness after the fact still builds insight. Over time, awareness moves earlier. The gap between trigger and action widens. That gap is where impulse loses power. Daily reflection strengthens this practice. Briefly reviewing moments of reactivity builds understanding, not to judge, to learn. Asking what was felt, and when it began, sharpens awareness. Learning replaces blame. The body is the most honest teacher of awareness. It reacts before the mind explains. Tension, heat, restlessness, and fatigue all signal rising impulse. Ignoring these signals increases reactivity. Listening to them reduces it. Awareness also reveals how environment affects behavior. Noise, crowds, time pressure, digital overload. These conditions lower awareness and increase impulsivity. Adjusting environment supports self-control. Awareness guides these adjustments. Training awareness does not require isolation or constant meditation. It is practiced in daily interactions, while speaking, while listening, while waiting. Small moments offer constant feedback. Awareness is woven into ordinary life. One challenge in awareness training is discomfort. Seeing triggers clearly means facing emotions that were previously avoided. This discomfort is temporary. Avoidance strengthens triggers. Awareness weakens them. Courage is required to stay present. Awareness also softens self-criticism. When behavior is seen clearly, it is easier to understand. Understanding leads to responsibility rather than shame. Responsibility supports growth. Shame fuels further impulsivity. Another benefit of awareness is improved empathy. Recognizing personal triggers increases sensitivity to others. This does not excuse harmful behavior. It deepens understanding. Understanding improves communication. Triggers lose power when they are named internally. Labeling the emotion calmly reduces intensity. This simple act engages the thinking mind. Impulse thrives when the mind is offline. Awareness brings it back. Awareness also reveals that not every emotion requires action. Many feelings rise and fall without intervention. Acting on all of them creates chaos. Awareness allows emotions to move through naturally. Training awareness strengthens emotional endurance. It builds tolerance for discomfort. Discomfort tolerated does not need to be discharged through impulse. This tolerance is a form of inner strength. There will be setbacks. Old triggers resurface. Awareness does not eliminate them instantly. It changes the outcome over time. Progress is measured by quicker recognition and shorter recovery. Awareness also changes identity. Instead of identifying as reactive, a person begins to see themselves as observant. This shift reduces shame and increases agency. Identity follows behavior, observed consciously. The mind may resist awareness because it disrupts automatic patterns. Resistance is a sign of growth. Continuing despite resistance builds discipline. Awareness requires honesty. It reveals motives that may be uncomfortable: desire for control, fear of rejection, need for validation. Seeing these clearly reduces their control. Awareness also protects decision-making. Impulsive choices often conflict with long-term goals. Awareness aligns actions with values. It brings future consequences into present consideration. Over time, awareness becomes steadier. Triggers are noticed sooner. Reactions soften. Choices improve. This change is gradual but reliable. Awareness is not about constant vigilance. It is about gentle attentiveness. Tension tightens awareness. Relaxation supports it. Calm attention sees more than forceful focus. Training awareness is a daily practice. It grows through repetition. Each moment of noticing strengthens the skill. Each impulse observed but not acted upon builds confidence. Eventually, triggers become signals rather than commands. They inform rather than control. Awareness transforms relationship with emotion from struggle to understanding. This is how impulsivity is reduced without suppression. This is how self-control becomes natural rather than forced. Awareness is the foundation that supports every other discipline. By training awareness, you gain the ability to witness internal events without being ruled by them. This witness creates space. In that space, wiser action becomes possible. Awareness does not promise comfort. It offers clarity. Clarity leads to freedom. Freedom grows where impulse once dominated. This is the quiet work that changes everything, not by fighting triggers, by seeing them clearly and choosing not to follow. Chapter 5. Practice thoughtful communication instead of instant defensive replies. Most conflicts do not begin with bad intentions. They begin with rushed words spoken from a place of protection rather than clarity. Defensive replies are usually attempts to guard pride, avoid blame, or escape discomfort. They feel necessary in the moment, but they quietly damage understanding. Thoughtful communication requires restraint. It asks for presence instead of speed. It replaces reaction with intention. Defensiveness narrows perception. When the mind feels threatened, it stops listening and starts preparing a counterattack. Words become shields rather than bridges. In this state, meaning is lost. What is said is heard through filters of fear or pride. Thoughtful communication widens perception. It keeps attention open long enough to understand before responding. The urge to defend often comes from misinterpretation. Tone is mistaken for intent. Feedback is mistaken for attack. Disagreement is mistaken for disrespect. Thoughtful communication separates facts from assumptions. It responds to what is actually said rather than what is feared. Listening is the foundation of thoughtful communication. True listening is not waiting for a pause to speak. It is giving full attention without planning a reply. This kind of listening calms the nervous system. Calm allows words to form with care. Care improves outcomes. Thoughtful communication begins internally before speaking. There must be clarity about purpose. Is the goal to be understood or to win? Is the goal to solve or to release tension? Defensiveness seeks relief. Thoughtful communication seeks resolution. Slowing speech changes conversations. Speaking slower gives the mind time to choose words deliberately. It signals confidence. It reduces misunderstanding. Slowness is often interpreted as strength. Rushed speech suggests uncertainty or aggression. Tone matters as much as content. Calm tone keeps discussions grounded. Raised tone escalates. Thoughtful communication uses steady tone even when emotions are present. Emotion can be expressed without aggression. This balance preserves dignity on both sides. Asking questions instead of making statements invites dialogue. Questions open space. Statements close it. Defensiveness asserts certainty. Thoughtful communication explores understanding. Asking for clarification reduces conflict without surrendering position. Silence is a powerful tool. Pausing before replying prevents automatic defenses. Silence allows emotions to settle. It creates room for better words. Silence does not mean agreement. It means consideration. Defensive replies often include justifications. Justifications shift focus from understanding to self-protection. Thoughtful communication focuses on impact rather than intent. Acknowledging impact does not erase intent. It builds trust. Ownership strengthens communication. Speaking from personal experience rather than accusation reduces resistance. Saying how something feels rather than what someone did changes the dynamic. Responsibility disarms defensiveness. Thoughtful communication also includes boundaries. Not every conversation needs continuation. Not every challenge requires engagement. Choosing when to speak is part of communication discipline. Silence can be clarity when words would confuse. Digital communication magnifies defensiveness. Messages lack tone and context. Immediate replies often misfire. Waiting before responding improves clarity. Reading messages twice before replying reduces misunderstanding. Thoughtful communication requires emotional regulation. When emotions run high, words lose precision. Regulating emotion before speaking preserves meaning. This regulation comes from awareness and pause. Defensiveness often stems from fear of being wrong. Accepting the possibility of error frees communication. Admitting uncertainty invites collaboration. Confidence does not require infallibility. Thoughtful communication respects timing. Some conversations need delay. Addressing issues at the wrong moment increases resistance. Choosing the right time increases receptivity. Language choice matters. Absolutes escalate conflict. Precision reduces it. Careful language keeps discussions grounded. Vague language invites assumption. Thoughtful communication also involves listening for what is not said. Emotions often hide beneath words. Noticing hesitation, tension, or silence provides context. Responding to underlying concerns improves resolution. Defensive replies often end conversations. Thoughtful communication continues them productively. Continuity builds relationships. Abruptness damages them. Practice strengthens this skill. Choosing one conversation daily to focus on thoughtful communication builds habit. Reflecting afterward reinforces learning. Thoughtful communication does not mean avoiding difficult topics. It means addressing them with respect. Respect increases the chance of being heard. This practice also improves self-respect. Speaking intentionally builds confidence. Regret decreases. Words align with values. Thoughtful communication transforms conflict into understanding. It replaces friction with clarity. It does not guarantee agreement, but it preserves dignity. Over time, others notice the difference. Conversations feel calmer. Trust increases. Influence grows naturally. This is not about controlling others. It is about controlling expression. Expression guided by intention is power. Thoughtful communication turns moments of tension into opportunities for connection. It changes outcomes by changing approach. Defensive replies protect the ego briefly. Thoughtful communication protects relationships long-term. This practice requires patience. It challenges habits formed over years. Progress is gradual. Each thoughtful response strengthens the skill. There will be moments of failure. Learning comes from reflection, not self-criticism. Improvement follows awareness. Thoughtful communication aligns words with values. It ensures speech serves purpose rather than impulse. This discipline brings calm to interactions. Calm fosters understanding. Understanding fosters resolution. By practicing thoughtful communication, conversations become tools for growth rather than conflict. Words regain their power to build rather than divide. This is how communication becomes intentional. This is how defensiveness loses control. This is how clarity replaces chaos through deliberate speech. Chapter 6. Build daily habits that strengthen patience, discipline, and self-trust. Building a strong character does not happen overnight. It grows quietly through consistent actions. Repeated daily habits are the architecture of patience, discipline, and self-trust. Each day provides countless opportunities to strengthen these qualities, but only if intention guides actions. Daily habits are not glamorous or dramatic. They are simple choices carried out with consistency, yet they compound over time into profound personal strength. Patience begins with noticing that life often unfolds slower than expected. Impatience is a reaction to perceived delay or inconvenience. It shows when things do not happen immediately or when others act unpredictably. Strengthening patience starts by observing these moments instead of reacting. Pausing, breathing, and accepting the current pace gradually increase tolerance for discomfort. Patience grows when discomfort is met with calm rather than resistance. Discipline emerges in daily commitment to what matters rather than what feels easy. It is choosing long-term benefit over short-term satisfaction repeatedly. Discipline is built in small routines, waking up consistently, completing tasks before desire dictates, practicing focus when distractions beckon. Each act of self-control reinforces the belief that action is aligned with intention. Discipline is less about motivation and more about reliable action, regardless of mood or circumstance. Self-trust grows when actions match promises made to oneself. Every commitment kept, no matter how small, reinforces confidence in personal reliability. Missing commitments erodes trust slowly. Being honest with oneself about capabilities strengthens integrity. Daily habits that align with values create evidence that the self can be relied upon. Self-trust allows decision-making without excessive doubt or hesitation. One practical method is to create a simple morning routine that centers energy and intention. Activities such as focused breathing, journaling, or planning the day's priorities condition the mind for consistency. Starting the day with deliberate action sets the tone for discipline. Completing this routine builds confidence and reinforces patience as the morning unfolds steadily rather than chaotically. Physical habits support mental resilience. Exercise, movement, and rest cultivate endurance and regulate stress. A healthy body provides a foundation for emotional and cognitive control. Strengthening the body strengthens the mind's ability to act patiently, uphold discipline, and trust itself in challenging situations. Small acts of self-restraint throughout the day reinforce character. Choosing not to react immediately to irritation, delaying gratification, or prioritizing meaningful tasks over distractions are practical exercises. Each delay trains patience. Each choice to act intentionally strengthens discipline. Each fulfilled commitment reinforces self-trust. Over time, these acts accumulate into profound change. Reflection is a key habit. Reviewing actions daily clarifies progress and identifies areas for improvement. Observing where patience faltered or discipline weakened provides insight. Honest self-assessment strengthens awareness and prevents repetition of avoidable mistakes. Reflection itself becomes a habit that improves decision-making and reinforces character growth. Consistency matters more than intensity. Performing a small act daily is more impactful than sporadic, intense effort. Reading for 10 minutes consistently maintaining a short meditation, or completing a simple task faithfully teaches reliability. Daily habits create momentum. Momentum generates confidence. Confidence encourages continued effort. Setting realistic goals supports habit formation. Unattainable expectations create frustration and undermine patience. Incremental steps allow steady growth without discouragement. Discipline is reinforced by achievable success, while self-trust is built when goals are met regularly. Each small victory becomes evidence that consistent action leads to reliable results. Mindfulness integrates these habits. Paying attention to thoughts, feelings, and impulses strengthens awareness of opportunities for self-control. Mindfulness reduces impulsive action, creating space to practice patience. It ensures discipline is intentional rather than mechanical. Observing internal states reinforces self-trust by highlighting patterns and choices, confirming that behavior is guided by conscious decision. Accountability reinforces these qualities. Sharing commitments with a trusted individual or tracking progress publicly enhances motivation and reliability. Accountability does not replace self-discipline, but amplifies it. Knowing that actions are observed encourages consistency, patience, and adherence to principles, and reinforces trust in personal integrity. Habits should align with core values to maximize impact. A routine that neglects priorities wastes energy. Actions that contradict principles erode self-trust. Each habit chosen intentionally is a reinforcement of identity. Daily alignment between values and behavior consolidates inner strength and clarity of purpose. Challenges are inevitable. Stressful situations test patience and discipline. Fatigue erodes self-trust. Daily habit practice ensures resilience under pressure. When habits are internalized, they act automatically during difficult moments, preserving calm, guiding choices, and reinforcing reliability even in adverse circumstances. Celebrating progress, no matter how minor, strengthens commitment. Recognition of small achievements fuels motivation without undermining humility. Positive reinforcement of successful habit execution builds confidence and encourages repetition, solidifying patience, discipline, and self-trust. Adapting to setbacks is part of habit training. Missed commitments or lapses do not signal failure, but provide learning opportunities. Adjusting routines, improving focus, and reaffirming intentions maintain growth momentum. Flexibility combined with consistency strengthens resilience and reinforces confidence in personal capacity. Habits influence emotional regulation directly. Consistent reflection, measured response, and deliberate action reduce impulsivity. Emotional stability is strengthened when routines reinforce patience, ensuring reactions are measured, deliberate, and aligned with values. Time management is essential for habit reinforcement. Allocating specific periods for intentional action preserves energy and focus. Overcommitment undermines discipline. Clear priorities and structured routines support the consistent practice of habits, providing a stable framework for growth. Mentorship or role modeling enhances habit formation. Observing individuals who exemplify patience, discipline, and self-trust provides guidance and motivation. Learning from others' routines, decision-making strategies, and reflective practices accelerates personal development and clarifies application in daily life. Self-compassion supports sustainable habit building. Patience, discipline, and self-trust strengthen when failure is treated as feedback rather than judgment. Avoiding harsh self-criticism ensures habits are reinforced through learning rather than avoidance, maintaining momentum and confidence. Integration of habits across multiple areas amplifies effectiveness. Combining mental, emotional, and physical practices creates synergy. Meditation with journaling, exercise with intentional planning, and mindfulness with reflection reinforce one another, producing comprehensive growth and strengthening core qualities simultaneously. Visualization reinforces consistency and purpose. Mentally rehearsing desired responses or daily routines enhances preparedness and increases likelihood of execution. Imagining disciplined, patient, and trustworthy behavior primes the mind to act in alignment with intentions during real situations. Over time, the repeated practice of daily habits transforms character. Patience becomes default, discipline becomes automatic, self-trust becomes ingrained. Small choices accumulate into a consistent pattern of behavior that defines identity and strengthens resilience in every aspect of life. Habit tracking provides tangible feedback. Recording progress visually or through journaling enhances awareness and commitment. Observing streaks or noting lapses clarifies growth areas and reinforces the sense of reliability, further building self-trust. Long-term habit practice reshapes perception of difficulty. Tasks that once felt challenging become manageable. Emotional responses are tempered. Discipline requires less effort. Patience becomes instinctive. Self-trust becomes unwavering. Daily repetition compounds into effortless mastery. Every day presents numerous opportunities to exercise these qualities. Waking moments, conversations, work responsibilities, and personal projects are fields for practical application. Each choice, no matter how small, is an investment in character. These investments accumulate into a resilient, focused, and self-reliant individual. By intentionally building daily habits, patience becomes reliable, discipline becomes natural, and self-trust becomes unshakable. Each moment of deliberate action reinforces identity, strengthens resolve, and cultivates consistent growth. Over time, these habits define life, not by circumstance, but by conscious choice. Chapter 7. Own mistakes calmly and respond with responsibility and growth. Mistakes are a universal part of life, yet most people respond to them with fear, defensiveness, or avoidance. Owning mistakes calmly is the first step toward transforming errors into growth. It requires a mindset that values learning over pride and responsibility over blame. Calm ownership does not deny accountability, nor does it excuse wrongdoing. It acknowledges reality fully, allowing the individual to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. The initial reaction to a mistake is often emotional. Shame, embarrassment, or anger can arise immediately. These emotions are natural, but acting on them without reflection only magnifies consequences. Responding calmly begins with pausing and observing both the internal state and the external situation. This pause creates the space needed to make a responsible choice rather than being driven by guilt or fear. Taking responsibility is central to growth. It is not limited to admitting the mistake verbally, but extends to examining how actions contributed to the outcome. Responsibility involves honesty with oneself. It involves identifying where judgment failed, where preparation was insufficient, or where assumptions led to errors. This introspection is uncomfortable, but essential for developing wisdom and self-trust. Calm ownership transforms the way others perceive you. People respond with respect to those who can acknowledge errors without defensiveness. It signals maturity and reliability. It also reduces conflict because defensive reactions often escalate tension unnecessarily. Owning mistakes with composure allows dialogue to focus on solutions instead of blame. Mistakes contain practical lessons. Each error provides information about processes, choices, and patterns that require adjustment. Observing the mistake without self-punishment allows the mind to analyze objectively. Asking questions like, what could have been done differently, what assumptions were inaccurate, or what knowledge was missing, turns failure into insight. Growth requires action following the acknowledgement of a mistake. Passive recognition without corrective steps is incomplete. Responding responsibly might include correcting errors where possible, adjusting systems to prevent recurrence, and seeking feedback from trusted individuals. This approach strengthens competence and reinforces confidence in the ability to handle challenges. Emotion regulation is vital in this process. Responding calmly does not mean ignoring feelings. It means managing them so that emotions inform rather than control behavior. Recognizing feelings of disappointment, frustration, or embarrassment without letting them dominate decisions allows rational thought to guide corrective action. Self-compassion enhances the ability to own mistakes effectively. Harsh self-criticism leads to anxiety, avoidance, or overcompensation. Viewing errors as opportunities to learn, rather than evidence of inadequacy, promotes resilience. Compassion provides a stable internal environment from which responsible action naturally flows. Owning mistakes also requires transparency. Communicating errors openly, when appropriate, strengthens trust in personal and professional relationships. Concealment might seem protective in the short term, but erodes credibility over time. Clear acknowledgement demonstrates integrity and reinforces consistent alignment between words and actions. Patterns in mistakes reveal areas for systemic improvement. Repeated errors often indicate deeper gaps in knowledge, skills, or habits. Calm analysis uncovers these patterns without judgment. Recognizing recurring themes allows for strategic adjustments that prevent future errors and foster continual personal development. Reflection after a mistake consolidates learning. Writing down what happened, how it was handled, and what will change next time deepens understanding. Documenting insights provides a reference for future decisions and strengthens memory of lessons learned. This habit reinforces self-awareness and enhances decision-making under pressure. Mistakes also teach humility. Accepting imperfection reduces the compulsion to control every outcome. Humility does not weaken resolve but grounds actions in reality, allowing decisions to be based on facts rather than ego. A humble mindset creates space for collaboration, feedback, and improved judgment. Calmly owning mistakes reduces anxiety about performance. When errors are treated as opportunities for growth, the fear of failure diminishes. This mindset encourages experimentation, creativity, and adaptive thinking because risk is approached thoughtfully rather than avoided entirely. Responsibility includes making amends when appropriate. Corrective action restores balance and demonstrates accountability. Apologies, adjustments, or compensatory efforts are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of strength and reliability. Taking initiative to rectify consequences reinforces self-respect and trustworthiness. Patience is essential in this process. Immediate perfection is impossible. Growth emerges gradually as lessons are integrated and behavior adjusts. Rushing corrective action or expecting instant mastery undermines the value of learning. Consistent reflection and measured response yield lasting change. Mistakes can also enhance relationships when handled correctly. Admitting errors openly fosters authenticity and encourages reciprocal honesty. People are more likely to forgive, collaborate, and trust when interactions are grounded in transparency and responsibility. Mistakes become bridges for connection rather than barriers. Practicing calm ownership strengthens self-discipline. Choosing to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively requires conscious effort. Each instance reinforces the habit, gradually reducing impulsive or defensive tendencies. Discipline grows as repeated calm ownership becomes the default response to challenges. Awareness of triggers during mistakes improves handling. Noticing emotional reactions as they arise allows for conscious intervention before behavior escalates. Training this awareness ensures that mistakes do not spiral into compounded problems caused by unchecked impulsivity. Learning to separate personal identity from mistakes is crucial. An error does not define who a person is. Viewing mistakes as events rather than reflections of self-worth reduces shame and promotes objectivity. This perspective supports clearer judgment and fosters continuous improvement. Mistakes provide opportunities to model resilience for others. Demonstrating calm, responsible responses sets a standard for peers, subordinates, and family. This modeling influences collective behavior positively, creating environments where learning from error is normalized and constructive rather than punitive. Calm ownership encourages strategic thinking. Instead of reacting defensively, the mind evaluates the situation, identifies necessary actions, and prioritizes corrective measures. Strategy transforms error management from reactive to proactive, making mistakes a tool for long-term improvement rather than a source of repeated frustration. Consistency in owning mistakes builds credibility over time. When people observe repeated examples of responsibility and calm response, trust deepens. This reliability strengthens professional standing, personal relationships, and internal confidence. Patterns of integrity become a defining feature of character. Mistakes can challenge ego, but responding with composure transforms potential vulnerability into growth. Each acknowledged error becomes a step toward mastery of emotional regulation, enhanced judgment, and stronger self-confidence. Over time, this habit reduces fear of failure and encourages thoughtful risk. Taking growth emerges when lessons from mistakes are applied. Analysis without application is incomplete. Implementing learned strategies, adjusting behavior, and monitoring results ensure that mistakes lead to measurable improvement rather than mere reflection. Action completes the cycle of ownership and transformation. Owning mistakes calmly cultivates patience, resilience, and wisdom simultaneously. Emotional control prevents escalation. Responsibility builds trust, and reflective learning promotes skill and judgment. Over time, this combination develops the capacity to face challenges confidently and navigate life with integrity. Mistakes are inevitable, but responses are choices. Calm ownership transforms errors from setbacks into opportunities. Responsibility ensures accountability, reflection, and action create growth through deliberate practice. Mistakes become instruments for personal development rather than sources of regret or fear. Responding responsibly to mistakes strengthens every dimension of character. Emotional resilience deepens, decision-making improves, relationships strengthen, self-trust becomes unwavering. Mastery over response ensures that mistakes no longer dominate life, but instead guide continual improvement, shaping individuals who act with wisdom, integrity, and intentionality in every circumstance. Chapter 8. Detach from ego-driven reactions to choose wiser actions. Ego-driven reactions are among the most powerful obstacles to wise decision-making. They are automatic, often unconscious, and fueled by the desire to protect identity, assert superiority, or avoid discomfort. When the ego dominates, choices are reactive, short-sighted, and self-serving. Detachment from these impulses is not about suppressing the self. It is about observing internal drives clearly and choosing actions aligned with reason, values, and long-term goals. The ego thrives on immediacy. It interprets challenges personally, perceiving criticism as attack and difference as threat. This perception triggers defensive behavior and clouded judgment. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward detachment. Observation of thoughts and emotional surges before responding provides the space necessary to shift from impulsive reaction to deliberate action. Detachment begins with awareness. Monitoring the mind for signs of ego activation allows one to pause before committing to a response. Tension, irritation, sudden defensiveness, or the urge to prove oneself are all indicators. Awareness transforms these warning signals into opportunities for reflection rather than triggers for action. Emotions and ego are not enemies, they are information. Distinguishing between the two is essential. Emotional responses can be acknowledged without granting the ego control over behavior. This distinction prevents hasty actions driven by pride, fear, or the need for validation. Observing emotion without immediate identification with it strengthens self-mastery. Thoughtful consideration is the core of detachment. When an impulse arises, pausing to evaluate consequences, motivations, and alignment with values ensures that decisions are strategic rather than reactive. This process replaces habitual patterns with intentional choices. Over time, reflection before action becomes second nature. Ego-driven reactions often escalate conflict. Words spoken in defense of pride, actions taken to assert dominance, or responses meant to avoid embarrassment frequently worsen situations. Detachment allows a calm assessment of circumstances, reducing unnecessary confrontation and fostering problem solving instead of defensiveness. Practicing humility strengthens detachment. Accepting that one does not have to be right or superior in every interaction diminishes the ego's control. Humility is not self-deprecation, but clarity of perspective. It permits listening, learning, and adapting without constant self-assertion, which naturally improves decision. Making quality detachment requires patience. Immediate control over ego impulses is unlikely. Repeated practice in daily situations, small disagreements, minor slights, or professional feedback builds resilience. Each successful pause and considered response reinforces confidence in one's ability to act thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Internal dialogue is crucial. When ego urges action, consciously reframing thoughts can prevent impulsive behavior. Instead of thinking, "I must prove myself," one might consider, "What serves the situation best?" This mental shift transforms reactive energy into strategic action, reducing unnecessary conflict and increasing effectiveness. Detachment also involves letting go of attachment to outcomes tied to ego satisfaction. Recognition, approval, and validation are often drivers of ego-driven decisions. Choosing action based on values rather than perceived judgment allows freedom from external pressures. This perspective enables focus on what is meaningful rather than what is reactive. Boundaries support ego detachment. When interactions challenge identity or provoke defensiveness, clear boundaries create space for thoughtful response. They prevent entanglement in ego-driven conflicts, preserve energy, and ensure that engagement is intentional rather than reactive. Mindfulness exercises cultivate ongoing awareness of ego activity. Observing breath, bodily sensations, and thoughts provides constant feedback on internal states. This awareness interrupts automatic reactions, allowing the mind to select actions consciously. Mindfulness makes detachment habitual rather than forced. Detachment improves communication. Conversations guided by reflection rather than ego are calmer, clearer, and more effective. Listening becomes authentic. Feedback is delivered constructively, and disagreements are resolved with reason rather than confrontation. Others respond positively to clarity and composure, reducing conflict and fostering collaboration. Reflection after action reinforces growth. Evaluating decisions and responses identifies instances where ego influenced behavior and opportunities for improvement. This feedback loop accelerates mastery, making conscious choice more instinctive over time. Reflection strengthens both self-awareness and self-discipline. Self-trust is fortified through detachment, knowing that responses are chosen intentionally rather than dictated by ego builds confidence in decision-making. Reliance on insight rather than impulse fosters consistency in behavior, reducing regret and improving resilience under pressure. Detachment enhances adaptability. Ego-driven rigidity often obstructs flexibility. Removing ego attachment allows for adjustments when circumstances change, promoting problem-solving and creative solutions. Adaptability is strengthened when decisions are grounded in reason rather than pride or defensiveness. Daily practice reinforces detachment. Simple acts, pausing before speaking, considering the impact of words, observing internal reactions, develop neural pathways that favor thoughtful action. These routines gradually reshape automatic responses, making wisdom the default rather than reaction. Detachment does not equate to passivity. It is active engagement guided by awareness, choosing calm, informed, and value-aligned responses requires effort and discipline. The individual becomes proactive in shaping outcomes instead of reactive to circumstances. Mistakes and failures provide training grounds for detachment. The ego naturally wants to deny error, blame others, or justify actions. Observing these impulses, acknowledging responsibility, and responding strategically strengthens the habit of conscious choice. Learning to separate self-worth from errors allows improvement without offensiveness. Detachment also reduces internal conflict. When ego drives decisions, the mind often experiences tension between desire, pride, and morality. Observing impulses without identification eases this tension, creating clarity and promoting rational, ethical, and effective actions. Strategic pauses enhance the ability to detach. Moments of silence before speaking or acting create space for evaluation. Even brief pauses reduce reactive behavior significantly. The practice of timing responses cultivates composure, strengthens judgment, and communicates confidence. Ego detachment enhances leadership. Leaders who respond thoughtfully inspire trust, respect, and cooperation. Their decisions are seen as fair and considered, rather than impulsive or self-serving. This approach cultivates credibility and influence, while reducing unnecessary friction. Detachment strengthens long-term thinking. Ego-driven actions often prioritize short-term gratification or defense. Acting with detachment aligns behavior with values, principles, and goals, producing sustainable outcomes. Long-term vision replaces immediate impulse. Self-reflection reinforces insight. Journaling experiences where ego influence decisions and identifying alternative responses improves awareness. Patterns become visible, enabling preemptive action in future situations. Reflection turns experiences into practical lessons. Detachment fosters emotional balance. Observing triggers without reacting allows emotions to flow without controlling decisions. Calm emotional states improve clarity, reduce stress, and enhance interpersonal effectiveness. Stability becomes habitual rather than fragile. Practice detachment consistently in both small and significant interactions. Responding thoughtfully in minor disagreements trains the mind for high-stakes situations. Small victories compound into the ability to navigate complex challenges with composure and wisdom. Over time, detachment transforms character. Reactions become intentional. Decisions align with principles, and behavior reflects strength rather than pride. The ego no longer dictates actions, and choices are guided by clarity, insight, and responsibility. By detaching from ego-driven reactions, each decision becomes an opportunity for intentional growth. Calm observation, thoughtful response, and value-aligned action create a life governed by wisdom rather than impulse. Mastery of ego transforms daily interactions, challenges, and choices into consistent demonstrations of strength, clarity, and integrity. Chapter 9. Create space between feeling and action for better decisions. Emotions are powerful signals that guide attention, but they are not always reliable guides for immediate action. Acting directly on intense feelings often leads to decisions that later produce regret. Creating space between feeling and action allows reflection, perspective, and deliberate choice. This space is not passive. It is a form of mental training that strengthens judgment and self-control. It transforms reactive behavior into intentional action. Every strong emotion, whether anger, fear, excitement, or frustration, begins in the body. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, breathing changes, and attention narrows. These physiological reactions push the mind toward immediate response. Recognizing these physical signs is the first step in creating space. Awareness of bodily cues interrupts automatic impulses and signals the need for pause. The pause is critical. Even a few seconds can prevent escalation and improve outcomes. During this interval, the mind can evaluate the situation, consider alternatives, and weigh potential consequences. Pausing does not diminish feeling, it simply separates perception from reaction. This separation is the foundation of better decision-making. Mindfulness strengthens the ability to maintain this space. Observing thoughts and emotions without judgment allows one to notice rising impulses before they dictate behavior. Breathing, focusing on the present moment, and acknowledging sensations all cultivate this skill. Mindfulness trains the mind to witness rather than react immediately. creating consistent opportunities for thoughtful action. Reflection during this space allows insight into triggers. Understanding what prompts emotional surges reduces vulnerability to automatic responses. Patterns emerge over time, revealing common situations, people, or stressors that provoke strong reactions. Recognizing these patterns informs strategies to manage emotions effectively and make more rational choices. Slowing response prevents mistakes driven by impulse. Rapid reactions often prioritize short-term relief over long-term benefit. Pausing allows assessment of values, goals, and principles before responding. Actions chosen deliberately align with intentions rather than temporary emotional states, resulting in more consistent and constructive outcomes. Journaling is a practical tool to reinforce this practice. Recording situations, emotions, reactions, and alternative responses strengthens self-awareness. Over time, written reflection highlights growth and recurring challenges, providing a roadmap for improving future decision-making and reinforcing the habit of pausing. Breathing techniques support the creation of space. Deep, slow breaths signal the nervous system to calm and reduce the urgency of immediate reaction. Physiological regulation strengthens mental clarity and emotional stability, making deliberate choice easier and more consistent. Visualization aids preparation for emotionally charged situations. Imagining potential triggers and rehearsing thoughtful responses creates mental readiness. This practice reduces the likelihood of being overtaken by impulsive reactions and increases confidence in handling real situations calmly. Time management also plays a role. Rushed schedules and constant pressure exacerbate impulsivity. Allocating time for thoughtful reflection before responding to challenges ensures that actions are deliberate rather than reactive. Planning moments to pause integrates space naturally into daily life. Emotional labeling reinforces control. Naming emotions internally, anger, anxiety, frustration, creates cognitive distance from the intensity of the feeling. This labeling reduces automaticity and increases the likelihood of a considered response rather than immediate action dictated by emotion. Perspective taking enhances this process. Considering how decisions will be viewed in the future or how they affect others encourages thoughtful action. Stepping back from the immediate emotional context provides clarity, allowing responses that balance self-interest with long-term goals and relational impact. Accountability systems strengthen the habit. Discussing situations with a trusted individual or reviewing choices after the fact increases awareness of impulsive patterns. External feedback complements internal reflection, helping to identify gaps and refine strategies for creating space between feeling and action. Daily routines that emphasize slow, deliberate practices reinforce this ability. Structured moments of meditation, reflection, and focused attention train the mind to observe impulses rather than be driven by them. Consistent repetition strengthens neural pathways, making the pause before action habitual. Patience is critical in this practice. Emotional impulses often demand immediate satisfaction. Deliberate choice requires tolerance of temporary discomfort. Accepting that delay does not weaken influence, but enhances decision quality, reinforces resilience and self-discipline. Detachment from ego-driven urgency supports better outcomes. Reactions motivated by pride, fear of judgment, or desire for control often escalate problems. Pausing creates distance from ego impulses, allowing reason and long-term interest to guide actions. This detachment improves relationships, communication, and overall effectiveness. Small, repeated successes in creating space reinforce self-trust. Each instance where a pause prevented regret or improved an outcome strengthens confidence in one's ability to respond intentionally. This growing trust encourages further application of the practice in increasingly challenging scenarios. Boundaries enhance emotional space. Protecting time, attention, and mental energy reduces exposure to constant triggers. When the mind is less fatigued and overstimulated, creating space between feeling and action becomes easier and more reliable. Boundaries preserve the capacity for thoughtful decision making. Learning from mistakes within this framework accelerates growth. Even when reactions occur impulsively, reviewing what happened, why it happened, and how space could have improved the outcome strengthens future performance. Reflection converts errors into lessons, reinforcing the habit of pause and considered action. Communication improves when space is applied. Responding after reflection, rather than reacting to the heat of a moment, reduces conflict and increases clarity. Thoughtful expression fosters understanding, strengthens relationships, and enhances personal influence. Emotional intelligence develops as this practice deepens. Recognizing, understanding, and regulating feelings before acting enhances judgment and decision making. Awareness of self and others is sharpened, improving interactions and reducing unnecessary emotional escalation. Visualization, reflection, and mindful pausing combine to create an internal system for deliberate action. Emotional impulses are acknowledged, analyzed, and then channeled into choices that serve long-term objectives rather than immediate gratification. Consistency is key. Daily practice of noticing emotions, pausing, reflecting, and responding strengthens the skill. Over time, the pause becomes automatic, and impulsive reactions diminish. The mind learns to default to considered action, creating predictable, positive outcomes. Creating space is not avoidance. It is strategic engagement. It allows observation, evaluation, and selection of the most constructive response. Space transforms emotional energy from reaction into deliberate action that serves goals, relationships, and personal integrity. Over time, the ability to separate feeling from action cultivates resilience. Decisions are guided by clarity and principle rather than momentary turbulence. Emotional intensity no longer dictates outcomes. The individual gains mastery over responses, creating stability, consistency, and effectiveness in all areas of life. By practicing the creation of space between feeling and action, individuals gain control over impulses, strengthen judgment, and enhance the quality of their decisions. The pause becomes a tool for intentional living, turning emotional energy into deliberate, value-aligned, and effective choices that shape life with wisdom, composure, and long-term benefit. Chapter 10. Lead your life by responding, not reacting under pressure. Pressure is a constant in life, appearing in personal relationships, work environments, and unforeseen challenges. How one responds to pressure defines outcomes more than the pressure itself. Reacting under pressure is automatic, often emotional and short-sighted. Responding deliberately requires awareness, self-control, and alignment with long-term goals. Leading your life through response rather than reaction transforms challenges into opportunities rather than crises. Reacting is instinctive. It prioritizes immediate relief or defense over reasoned action. Under pressure, the mind narrows, focusing on survival, ego preservation, or fear avoidance. Decisions made in this state often overlook consequences, values, or context. Recognizing this tendency is the first step toward mastery. Awareness of automatic reactions allows choice. Deliberate response begins with observation, noticing internal states, the racing heart, tense muscles, rapid thoughts, provides early warning that pressure is activating instinctive behavior. Observation does not eliminate emotion but positions the mind to act intentionally. Pausing in these moments allows reflection, evaluation, and strategic decision making. Breathing techniques are a practical tool in high-pressure situations. Deep, controlled breaths regulate the nervous system, reduce the intensity of emotional surges, and restore clarity. Physical calm supports mental clarity, ensuring responses are measured rather than reflexive. Breathing becomes the bridge between instinct and intention. Pressure tests values and priorities. Reacting often leads to compromising principles in favor of convenience or avoidance. Responding ensures that actions remain aligned with personal integrity. Each decision under pressure becomes an opportunity to reinforce character and demonstrate reliability. Preparation strengthens the ability to respond rather than react. Anticipating potential stresses, creating contingency plans, and mentally rehearsing responses equip the mind to handle pressure strategically. This foresight reduces impulsivity and increases confidence when situations arise unexpectedly. Awareness of triggers under pressure is crucial. Certain circumstances, words, or behaviors provoke automatic reactions. Identifying these triggers in advance enables the mind to intervene before impulse dictates action. Knowledge of personal patterns empowers individuals to act intentionally rather than being swept along by emotion. Thoughtful response requires perspective, viewing the situation objectively, considering long-term consequences, and evaluating options prevents hasty decisions. Pressure often distorts perception, exaggerating threats and minimizing solutions. Deliberate reflection corrects these distortions and creates space for wise choice. Emotional regulation is essential. Pressure magnifies feelings of fear, anger, or frustration. Responding effectively means acknowledging these emotions without letting them dictate behavior. Techniques such as labeling emotions internally, pausing to breathe, and focusing on actionable steps reduce impulsivity and preserve clarity. Trust is built through consistent practice in responding under pressure. Each instance where deliberate action replaces reaction strengthens confidence in one's judgment. This growing trust reduces anxiety in future high-pressure situations, allowing more consistent, effective decision-making over time. Communication under pressure is improved through response. Reacting often escalates conflicts, generates misunderstandings, and damages relationships. Responding with calm and clarity ensures that dialogue remains constructive, messages are understood, and outcomes are aligned with goals rather than emotional impulses. Patience is a cornerstone of response. Pressure creates urgency, but rushing decisions under stress often exacerbates problems. Deliberate action, even when brief pauses are uncomfortable, results in solutions that are measured, effective, and aligned with priorities. Patience under pressure demonstrates strength and enhances outcomes. Responsibility guides response. Reactivity often deflects accountability, assigning blame externally or internally. Responding deliberately involves owning decisions, actions, and their consequences. This accountability fosters credibility, integrity, and consistent personal growth. Responsibility under pressure strengthens resilience and trustworthiness. Flexibility enhances leadership under pressure. Conditions often change rapidly, requiring adaptation. Reaction is rigid and fixed, while response evaluates shifting circumstances and adjusts appropriately. The ability to remain composed while recalibrating actions ensures effectiveness even in uncertain environments. Reflection after high-pressure situations consolidates learning. Reviewing choices, outcomes, and internal responses reinforces understanding of patterns, strengths, and areas for improvement. Reflection transforms experience into practical insight, ensuring that each encounter strengthens capacity to respond in future challenges. Boundaries support deliberate action. Pressure often arises from overcommitment or exposure to excessive demands. Setting clear limits protects mental clarity, energy, and focus, enabling intentional responses rather than reactive compliance. Boundaries preserve autonomy and maintain alignment with priorities. Perspective on failure reduces reactive tendencies. Pressure magnifies perceived stakes, triggering defensive behavior. Viewing mistakes as information rather than threats encourages thoughtful adjustment rather than impulsive correction. Learning from errors under pressure strengthens judgment and resilience. Daily habits cultivate readiness to respond effectively. Regular practice of mindfulness, reflection, emotional regulation, and strategic planning prepares the mind to act intentionally. Habitual training ensures that calm, deliberate responses become default even in high-stress conditions. Consistency transforms theory into practice. Empathy enhances response under pressure. Understanding others' perspectives reduces automatic defensive reactions and promotes collaborative solutions. Recognizing motivations and emotions in others allows more measured, effective interaction rather than reactive confrontation. Empathy aligns action with relational goals and constructive outcomes. Decision-making frameworks support calm response, applying principles such as prioritizing facts over assumptions, weighing consequences, and considering alignment with values provides structure under stress. Frameworks reduce the influence of heightened emotions and improve reliability of outcomes. Resilience develops through repeated practice in pressure situations. Each successfully managed challenge reinforces capacity to maintain composure, evaluate options, and act intentionally. Resilience grows cumulatively, providing greater ease and effectiveness in increasingly complex circumstances. Confidence emerges when responses are consistently deliberate. Repeated experience of acting thoughtfully under stress reinforces belief in judgment, enhances emotional stability, and reduces the impulse to react defensively or impulsively. Confidence encourages further mastery and strengthens personal authority. Accountability during pressure ensures integrity. Accepting responsibility for actions under stress reinforces self-respect and credibility with others. Avoiding blame or denial demonstrates maturity and reinforces the principle that leadership begins with ownership of choices. Creating space between stimulus and response is essential. Immediate reactions are dominated by emotion. Space allows evaluation, consideration of consequences, and alignment with values. Developing this space under pressure converts potential mistakes into intentional progress. Over time, responding rather than reacting transforms how challenges are experienced. Stress becomes an opportunity for growth rather than a source of chaos. Pressure-tested choices build discipline, reinforce self-trust, and improve clarity, ensuring that each decision strengthens character rather than diminishes it. Leading life through response under pressure requires awareness, patience, emotional regulation, preparation, and reflection. Each element reinforces the others, producing consistent, intentional action. Over repeated practice, deliberate response becomes instinctive, creating a life defined by composure, insight, and integrity, rather than impulsivity and regret. Mastery of response transforms personal and professional interactions. Relationships improve, problems are solved more effectively, and trust in oneself and others increases. Leading life through intentional responses establishes a foundation of stability, influence, and long-term success that withstands the pressures of daily life and unforeseen challenges.